Hi, I'm Carrie, and this is Sandra Sisterhood. This is a YouTube channel for the single and childless, not by choice person. Our video today is You're Not Too Sensitive. Those of you who are single and childless, not by choice, you may get messages from the people around you when you explain or act like you're having a difficult time with certain events or certain anniversaries. You might get the impression that people think you're being too sensitive and that you should go anyway. Or maybe you're absorbing a lot of information from culture or society, and so you feel like you're being too sensitive and you should go anyway, even if it means that you put yourself in a difficult headspace or a difficult mental health space. So, if you've ever been in that situation, watch this video because I'm going to give you some information that you can tell yourself to challenge that thought that you're being too sensitive. Things that you might be told that you're being too sensitive about. Again, going to baby showers or wedding showers, maybe pregnancy announcements or engagement announcements, birth announcements or wedding announcements, milestone celebrations such as birthdays or christenings or graduations, holidays, reunions or family get-togethers when you know you're going to be getting a lot of questions that people think they're being hilarious around but are actually fairly hurtful, right? Maybe it's your friends having grandchildren. So these things, there's always something kind of in each stage and each season of life. And as you're in different seasons of life or doing different work, you may feel like you're able to handle these, and sometimes you may not be able to. You may even go through times where there are times when you feel like you can go to these events. And then you may revert back and feel like, nope, something's occurred. This is too painful. Or maybe it's a certain person that you were going through infertility treatment with, or maybe it's somebody who is really close to you, right? And sometimes these events can get more difficult depending on who they are. So you're not being too sensitive if you feel like you can't go or you feel like you can't show up. And you can support somebody and not show up to these events. Again, I think it's one of the things that makes these events more difficult is that there seems to be kind of an expectation that if you love someone enough or you support somebody enough, that you will attend. That if you don't go to these things, that it indicates that you're selfish or something doesn't matter to you, particularly if there's somebody that you love. And that is wrong. Even if you have known you won't have kids and this is years later, it's still okay if you feel like you need to set a boundary. This is the same as if the grief was more of the traditional grief, right? Where if somebody lost a spouse or they lost a child due to death and they felt like they can't go to certain events, I think people kind of understand that in a little bit different way. Not that you don't have people in your life who do understand, but for those people who don't, those people who might be telling you you're being too sensitive, remember, you're not. This is grief. And that if this were a different type of grief, they would probably understand. And so you can remind yourself of that so you don't absorb some negative self-worth or negative self-talk related to being triggered by these things. You don't have to purposely put yourself in a triggering spot, in a spot that might send you into a spiral that's difficult to get out of in order to show support. There are other ways that you can show support. You can send a gift. You can send a card. You can send an email. You can reach out separately. You can say, let me take you out to dinner so we can, one-on-one, so we can celebrate this in a different way. If they're your friend and if they're your loved one, they will understand and be okay with that. If they're not, then you can choose, do you want to educate them on what this type of grief is, or is this someone that maybe you know they're just never going to understand, and then you make decisions around that. Whatever you choose to do is okay because you're the expert for your life. You also don't have to give a long explanation about why you don't want to go. Setting a boundary is enough. Again, we can't make every event, and just because you're not going doesn't mean you don't love them. Again, you say what you're comfortable saying and don't say what you're not comfortable saying. This can be a pretty vulnerable circumstance and a pretty vulnerable situation to be in. You also get to change your mind. So if you say that you're not going and then you decide you want to go, you can do that. If you show up and decide partway through the event that you've changed your mind and you want to leave, you get to do that. Remember, you get to control your actions, your body, and you get to control where you are. And it's okay if you leave. You can also go and you can have fun. And it doesn't mean that you aren't still grieving or that you're, quote, over it. I wonder if sometimes we think that way, whereas, if I kind of show up in a space where I'm having a good time, are people automatically going to stop checking in on me, think I'm over it, think I've moved past it, and then I'm set alone with these feelings again? Sometimes that might happen. And I want to reemphasize that if you go and have fun, that's okay too. You're not betraying the dreams that you had around having children. It just means you're living in the moment and you're living in your reality, and you're starting to maybe move through acceptance. Doesn't mean that you won't have times where it hurts. It won't mean that you are completely okay with it and you're now happy you don't have kids. It just means that you're living in the reality of your space and your life. So next time you start to worry that you're being too sensitive, or you start to go in that spiral of self-talk where you question how you're being and what kind of friend you're being if you're setting these types of boundaries, I want you to think about this video and some of the things that I said, so then you can challenge those thoughts and remind yourself you are not being too sensitive. You're managing your grief. Subscribe to Sandra's Sisterhood for more videos for the single and childless, not by choice person.